Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Inspired Moment with Jumoke. My name is Jumoke Olaguju, and this program is powered by the Inspired Design School of Fashion. It's a weekly program where I upload different DIYs on shoemaking, dressmaking, bag making. Okay, for the fashion lovers. If you're joining us for the first time, you can check our YouTube channel, the Inspired Design School of Fashion, or on our Telegram channel, Inspired Moment with Jumoke, for previous episodes. Remember to turn on the notification, subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any of our subsequent classes. Alright, so in today's class, we'll be learning how to make this beautiful Ankara dress or t-shirt dress with Ankara patches. It has two pockets and Ankara patches, okay? So I'll be showing you how to make it. Before I go to the class, let me just say this about the neckline, because I use a fabric that doesn't stretch too much. So for my collar, I didn't I just subtracted like 1 inch from the length of the collar. But to get the best result, you should use a fabric that stretches well, so that you can, when you measure the neckline of the dress, you can cut your collar like 2 inches or even 3 inches shorter than the neckline. Also, the dress I make here is a little bit high collar. If you want something with a lower collar, as in that looks more like a regular t-shirt, instead of using 3x3 that we use in this class, you can make use of like 3.5 inches width, and then the depth can be 4 inches. Then you use your collar, the short collar, not more than maybe 16 inches, to gather, or to pull the neckline together. It's not going to form a gather, please, but it's going to, pull it together and give you that t-shirt design. All right, so without wasting time, let's get to the drafting table and let me show you how I made this dress. I'll be drafting directly on my fabric, and I'm using this black fabric. It's a stretch material. That's the best fabric to use for making t-shirts, obviously, and you can use any stretch material. And I'm using this African print for the patches. So the measurement you require for making this dress is the dress length, the waist circumference, the hip circumference, and the bust circumference, and also the sleeve length and sleeve circumference. So for this dress, the length is 38 inches, and this fabric here is 32 inches, 32 and a half. I want to use this fabric to complete the remaining length. So when you are drafting, you have to put that into consideration, since we are drafting directly on our fabric. Okay, so that means I'll need 6 inches of this to complete my length, and I need to add half-inch seam here, as in to join it. So that's 6.5 plus 1 inch to hem, that is like 7.5. So I will add 1 inch, a half inch to join it at the shoulder seam. That's so I need like 8 inches to complete the length I need, and I have roughly that here. I don't have up to 8 inches, but you will have to do. So that's how to calculate the length of your dress. If you want the Ankara to be smaller, then you add to the length of the black fabric. And so let's start drafting. I've folded my fabric into two, and I've used my hip measurement to fold. So the hip measurement is 38 inches. I'm going to add like 3 inches, 1 inch for the seam on both sides and 2 inches for ease. So that's like 41 inches. Therefore, my fabric is folded, is like 21 inches of fabric. Then I'm going to fold it again, making 4 fold. Okay, so that means I'll be cutting both the back and the front together. I'm drafting it together. Just follow me and pay attention. Okay, Now let's move this a little bit down so that you can see. I'm going to measure the shoulder measurement, which is 7 inches plus half inch for seam, 7.5. Then I'm going to mark the breast points, although it's not really necessary. Let's just go straight to the waistline, 14 inches. Remember, I'm using half inch for seam here, so that's 14.5. Then the hip length, 23 inches, so that's like 23.5. So okay, all right. So the bust point, yes, we need to put the bust point so that we can place the bust measurement. So like 9.5, so plus half, 10 inches. On this line now, I'm going to measure my my bust point, my bust circumference. The bust is 34 inches divided by 4, that's like 8.5, plus half inch for seam, so around here. Then the waist is 28, 7 inches plus half inch for seam, 7.5. Then we've used the hip to the hip measurement to fold, so we don't need to remeasure that. I'm just going to connect it. So if you want your t-shirt to be fitted, you can maintain this, just straighten this curve. But like I said, t-shirts are meant to be free, so I'm just going to try and straighten it, taking away that side dart, because that's actually a dart, so that there's a slight intake at the waist, but it's not going to be so fitted. So, and then this one is going to come all the way down. Now let's come for the neck measurements. Now the standard is 3x3 for front and 3x1 for the back. That's the standard. But if you want to take your own measurement and use your personal measurements, you can do that. But for most people, 3x3 for front, that is 3 inches width, and then the depth of 3 inches is usually okay. And then you have to curve this. It's not going to be straight. Curve it. So this is the front neckline here. I'm going to measure the back neckline also here. It's also 3 inches width, and the depth is 1 inch. So I'm just going to draw it. So I'm drawing both the front and the back neckline on this fabric. You'll see how I will cut it separately. Now the shoulder slope between 1 and 1.5 inch. So I'm just going to go ahead and use like 1.25 for the shoulder slope. Okay, now for the armhole depth, some people take the measurement, but what I do is I usually use, there are different ways of getting it. You can calculate it, like divide the bust measurement by 4 and then add 1 inch to it. But for me, I usually use the shoulder, and most times it works. So I use 7.5 here. So I'm going to use 7.5 here. Like I said, you can take your measurement, or you can use the bust to calculate it. Then I'm going to find the center. So this is like 3 3/4. At the center here, I'm going to come in by ½ inch, and then I will draw the front armhole using my armhole curved ruler. So I'll connect from the tip to the ½ inch mark to the side here. I hope you can see. Usually I draft on paper, but since this is supposed to be a very fast class, I'm drafting directly on my fabric, so I hope you can see it. So that's the front armhole. For the back armhole, there's not going to be any inward slant here, so from the midpoint I'm just going to connect it to the base. Okay, so that's basically it for the drafting of the bodice. So now I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to be cutting the pattern that I've drafted for the back first. So remember, the back neckline is 1 inch. That's what I'm cutting out, and the front is okay. And then for the armhole, the back is the one that is not slanted inwards, and that's the one I'm cutting out. Then I'm going to cut the side. Okay. So I'm just going to separate the back, and then I can cut out the neckline for the front. My markings is already there, so I'll just cut it out. Then I'll cut the armhole for the front. So that's it. Now let's cut the sleeve. You can decide on the whatever sleeve length you want to use. You can make it long sleeve, 3/4, or just short. I'm going to make mine short, and I'm going to tape it with African prints. Let's see, I want to see how I'm going to fold this fabric. Okay, so this should do. Also, the same thing for the sleeve. You can make your sleeve fitted, free, or however you want it. So this one is going to be slightly, it's not going to be fitted. Now, the fold here, I folded into 4, so I'm cutting the 2 sleeves together, and the width here will be your armhole measurement, half of your armhole measurement, or the length that we use for the armhole when we're drafting the body, and that is 7.5 plus ½ inch seam. So I have 8 inches. Then I've added like ½ inch for ease. So on this part here, I have like 8.5. Then for the sleeve cap, a standard sleeve cap is usually like 4 inches when you're making for a shirt, or mostly so it's usually between 3 and 4 inches. Sometimes you can use your bust measurement to calculate it. You divide your bust measurement by 12 and add like ½ inch. Well, but you know, in tailoring or in fashion designing, there are different ways, several ways of getting the same result at times. So what I'm going to be using for my sleeve cap is 3 inches, because for a t-shirt, the sleeve cap is not so high. You don't want it to be too high, so I'm just going to be using 3 inches. Okay, so this is the folded part of the fabric. This is going to be my center, the center front of the sleeve. From that depth, I'm going to connect to the edge here, and then I'm going to divide this measurement into 4. So this is like 9 inches, 4.5. That's the midpoint. Okay, that's my shortcut for getting the for dividing it into 4 instead of calculating. So I just folded my tape. So that's like a tailoring hack. The length of my sleeve is going to be like 7 inches. Okay, so I'll add ½ inch for turning it. Okay, so that's the length of my sleeve. Here, naturally, my bicep is like 13 inches. So I should use like a 6.5 here. But I want it to be a little bit free. So I'm just going to use like 7.5. So then you connect to this point. At this edge here, at the first division, closer to the center front here, I'm going to go up by ½ inch. I think I've done this in previous classes, as in showing you how to draft a sleeve. Okay, so this is a quick way of drafting it. Then I'll drop it by 3/4 of an inch here. Then you're going to draw your like S shape, you know, connect it from the tip here to the 0.5 above. So that's basically it. Sometimes people don't measure it, just draw your cup shape here. But when you've been doing this for long, you get used to it without, you know, all those kind of measurements. Okay. So that's the sleeve. Like I said, I want to turn it with my African print, so I'm going to cut a piece of fabric. So I want it to be just like 1 inch. So I'll be using ½ inch to turn it here, then ½ inch to turn it in. So my fabric will be like 2 inches by the length of my sleeve here. So I have like 16 inches. Let's see if this up to what I need. Okay, I have 2 inches. So I'm just going to cut 16 inches. Let's make it 17 to be on the safe side, because we're going to be turning it up here. Then I'll mark 2 inches. This is more than 2 inches. I need 2 inches. But if you want the turning to be more, you can go ahead and make it as big as you want. Okay, so I'm going to cut 2 pieces of this. Let me just quickly show you how to fix the sleeve before we move on to the other part of the bodice. You're going to place it right side on right side, stitch with your seam, ½ inch seam. You can top stitch on it, then turn it. Sorry, the wrong side is going to be on the wrong side, because we want to turn it to the right side. So it's going to be the right side of your African print on the wrong side of your sleeve. Stitch it, top stitch, then turn to the right side, turn it down by ½ inch, then stitch on top of it. So, and your sleeve will be ready. Just don't join the side. So let's move on to the additional part of the dress. I'm just going to cut it to the length that is required. I've already cut this to the length I want to complete it, so I'll just cut it to the length that matches my dress. So this for the back and the front. Now the final thing we're going to do is to attach our so I must not mix this up. This is the front. In the front, we're going to have a pocket, a patch pocket. A patch pocket is a pocket that you place on top of the fabric. You stitch it on top, and it can be any shape that you want. So let me see if my fabric will allow me to do like a semicircle kind of sleeve, or the pocket, I mean. So my pocket, I want it to be like, you're going to measure like 12 inches. So consider that we'll be turning it in. Let's just make it 13 inches, since we're drafting directly on our fabric. 13 inches. And the width can be as much or as big as you want it to be. So my pocket here is 13 inches by 10, and I folded it into 2. I'm cutting the 2 pockets at the same time. So I want to do a kind of curve, like a semicircle kind of sleeve pocket. Let me see. Like I said, you can do any shape that works for you. I just want something that will be regular. Okay, let's okay, so this is the outside part of my pocket. This is what it's going to look like. I think it's too big because it's going to be 2. let's see. Let me separate it so that's it. When you are when you are drafting, you are designing. It's not as if you are copying someone. You change and make adjustments as you seem fit. Okay, so let's make it smaller. I'm going to cut like 1.5 inches away, so that there will be some gap between the two pockets. Okay, so my pocket is going to be like this. Now I have to draw cut out the part that will be where you slip your hand in. So from the tip here, I'm going to go down by 6 inches. That's usually the standard, or you can use your hand. Just put your hand and see if your hand can enter. So I'm just going to use the standard, which is like 6 inches. Then I'm going to curve it out. So I'm not copying any style here, I'm just creating my own style. So you too can create whatever kind of pockets you want. So this is going to be the opening, and this will be stitched to the bodice. Now you're just going to turn the edges here. To make it easy for you, just use your iron and turn it, then place it on the fabric and stitch on top. But before you stitch it, you can turn these edges with your bias tape. Turn the edges with the bias tape, then we'll place it on the fabric like this and stitch on both sides. Then, to know where to place your pockets, usually you should start somewhere below your waistline, maybe around the abdomen. So I'm just going to go down by like 16 inches and start my pocket from that point. So this is where my pocket will be. Okay, and here is the joining. So quickly, let's just finish all that. Once we are done, you fix the pocket and the down part. We're going to place the back on top. So where's my back? My table is kind of fancy. So I'm going to place the back on top like this and stitch the shoulder seam. Then we'll stitch the side seam. Then I'll show you the next stage. Okay, so this is how far we've gone with the class, with the dress. Now we have our sleeve. We're just going to insert it. I've spent a long time on this video, so I need to round up. So we all know how to fix sleeve, I believe. We're just going to fix our sleeve. And this dress actually is a fitter than I would have loved it to be. I wanted it to be much more freer than this, so next time I will add more ease. But like I said, you can even make your own fitted. So the last thing we're going to do is to attach the collar. So what you're going to do now is to measure around this neckline. So here I have like 18 inches. Then cut your piece of fabric, which is like 1 inch, or depending on how much stretch or how much elasticity your fabric has. This fabric doesn't stretch much, so I've just reduced 1 inch from the normal length. So I've cut 17 inches plus ½ inch for joining the seam. You're going to join it to create a circle, a kind of a circular collar. Then you fold it into two this way, match it up with the neckline, match it up with the other side, then stretch and stitch. And that is it for our dress. And that's it for today's class. Thank you for joining us this week, and I hope you will subscribe to our channel. Subscribe and turn on the notifications so that you don't miss any of our further tutorial. And if you are interested in joining our online fashion school, you can click the link that I'm going to drop in the description box. All right, so thank you once again for joining me. See you next week. Bye.